Hi, welcome everyone to the alumni panel of our July Global Leadership Lab immersion on the theme Storytelling for Change. We have people from all over the world joining us on Zoom, YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook. So this is great. My name is Willy Pedroso. I'm an Atlas Corp fellow. I'm from Cuba and I'm serving at Generation. I am very excited to be today's session moderator, and I have the pleasure of speaking with some of our with very incredible guests. Before we begin, we'd like to remind you that the Atlas Corp team will be monitoring the chat on each of the platforms. So make sure you ask your speakers any questions and you post uh, any comments that you have. We'll get back to the audience questions in the second half of today's event. So let's do a little bit of warm up before we begin. And to warm up, here's an icebreaker question for you. We're asking what's something you've read, something you've watched or listened recently that challenged you. So what's something that you recently read, listened to, or saw or watched that you felt challenged about? So go ahead, go to any comment in any of the platforms that you're following us, and you can post it. So we'll give you a bit of time to share those comments, and I'm gonna start introducing you to our panel. Today we have very dynamic three guests that I'm very happy to join and to introduce you to. First of all, we have Trina Talukdar. She's an alumni from class 15. Trina started working on Calicut. Sorry if my pronunciation is not the best. Calicut is one of Asia's oldest and largest red light areas. At the age of 18, her interaction with commercial sex workers spurred her passion to channel the immersed strength and potential she saw in them towards becoming the best social change leader in our times. She co-founded a nonprofit, Kranti, at the age of 22 in Mumbai. Kranti identifies the potential of girls who have been trafficked to become agents of social change as they survive the worst social adversities and have the passion and understanding to solve these social problems. Our second guest today is Lucia Solorzano. She's an alum from class 16. Lucia is a passionate, committed, and self-driving leader with experience in research and education, management of international programs, and youth curriculum development. She enjoys working in institutions that address solutions to social issues and encourage and continue intercultural connection between local communities. She likes to effectively network with different community sectors, government, local, and international organizations, and establish different ways of collaboration through partnership. Welcome, Lucia. So our third panelist today will be Nino. He's a class 26 alum. Nino is an activist, entrepreneur, and social innovation specialist who's passionate about business, social impact, and youth empowerment. He has 10 years of comprehensive experience, including consulting, business incorporation and management, and human empowerment. In addition to his own business, he also co-founded local and national nonprofit and advocacy organizations, bringing together a diverse group of organizations and people to collaborate and reach a common goal. Welcome all. It's a pleasure to share this session with you. Okay, I'm getting a few great responses to the warm-up question. Let me check it again. So we're talking about something that we've read, watched, or listened to recently that challenged us. So do we have... I'm waiting to see. What about I'll get some time to read some of those comments, but what about you? I'm going to turn out to the panelists. Can you talk about something you read recently, or something you saw recently, something you heard recently that challenged you?
I can start us off.
Yeah, sure.
So I watched this video recently by a professor from Yale who researches happiness. And she says that our brains are not wired for happiness because they're wired for survival. And we don't need to be happy to survive. So actually, our brain doesn't care to really make us happy. So I think I felt really challenged by that. It seems like a depressing thought, that that happiness is not important for survival. I would have liked to think so. So
Very challenging. Anyone else?
So, yeah, I can maybe share with you. So I am from Nicaragua, but currently I'm living in Guatemala. So the elections were like 2 weeks ago, and it has been really challenging just to see how it has been turned out after the election. So I'll be keeping myself posted on
Hmm.
to see on the regional level of Latin America how our populations and countries react almost in the same way. And I'm just like keeping reflecting back to um, know the reality of my own country, Nicaragua, with all these processes of having dictatorships. So I just been like
Hmm.
really intrigued in observing the reactions of entirely populations and still consider how resilient and I feel that our communities and our town and like our different countries are. So I just keep that on my the politic reaction, the political reality of our countries, how we are interconnected is something that I just keep in mind all the time. So thank you.
Thank you for sharing, Lucia. And Nino?
Yeah, sure. So I've been reading this book. It's in Arabic though. About it's a laser focus research on street vendors in Tunisia, and especially in the streets surrounding our offices, or like now our former offices, and how like basically it draws from it. It really challenged me, and it's very eye opening because it talks about the history of that neighborhood, and then how from pre-colonial times until colonial times and until today, how it shifted and how the market became the street, or like the street became the market, and such an interesting dynamic from a socio-anthropological perspective, while we did the same research a couple of years ago, but purely on economics and economic empowerment lens. So it was very interesting for me to, and as well like challenging, like the gender norms and everything, and like how things are working right across, like down the window from my office. And it's just been very interesting. So thank you for the question.
Thank you, Nino, for sharing. Uh, yeah, I mean, in my case, it wasn't recent, but it's one of the things that I've read that I really loved. There's Eduardo Galeano. I don't know if you know him. He's Latin America. He's from Argentina, and he writes a lot about the situation also in Argentina. And one of his books, he says, "We are what we do to change what we are," which is it. This is it's kind of like my own translation from Spanish, but for me, it's one of the most not only challenging but inspiring things that I've read, and I try to apply that to my own life all the time. Okay, thank you so much for sharing. I see we don't have comments yet, so I keep inviting people to join and share their own experiences. We're gonna go back to it later today, but I think we'll be ready to dive in the questions with the panelists. Okay, so as our theme suggests, today we're focusing on storytelling for change. Storytelling is powerful, and honing in on this art of it's beneficial not only for effectively communicating your personal why, but for coalition and partnership building, and knowing how best to communicate the stories of those we aim to serve. As we delve deeper in this topic today and how this has played on in our individual experiences first. So to start off, we'd love to hear more about your origin story and how you became the dynamic social impact leader to what you are today. So can you tell us a bit about your background and how you ended up being part of the Atlas Core community? Maybe we can follow the same order. So Trina will be first.
I would actually love for someone else to go first so we can switch it up, if that's okay.
All right, perfect. Anyone feel comfortable to start off?
Yeah, I can start off.
Okay.
Yeah. So first of all, thank you for the invitation to this panel and to share the story. So my story, I think it's not something very surprising, I guess. So I've been after graduating high school, went to business school, local business school in Tunisia, in Tunis, and then started my first business when I was in second year university, and then like slowly it was 2011 Tunisia, Arab Spring, and all that. There's like this wave of like courage across the region and also across the generations in the country. And so we started the first business of like house cleaning supplies retail, very very basic, local neighborhoody kind of thing, with some innovative twist of delivering things by bikes. And then slowly that, in addition to studies and to the activism that I was involved in, so it slowly created the how to say, like there was something missing within the business side of things. That's something missing that is like, of course we make a lot of money, but also there's there's nothing that like satisfies the heart in a way. So I started like basically engaging in these like initiatives on how to like basically train young people on how to start businesses and everything. And then that also was like the main activities for the hub L-Space, the organization I co-founded in 2015, and right about like after my graduation from business school. And it was more of a non-profit. We just wanted to young people, and then it slowly evolved into a social innovation hub where we have a lot of different activities, from co-working spaces to mentorship to incubation programs, and at the same time, having offering some kind of a refuge for activists who need to lay low or hibernate for a couple days or for just a couple hours, because they were like followed by the cops or by the intelligence services or something like that. So, and then of course like the main focus of this organization was more economic empowerment, and at the same time civic engagement for young people. It's first years of Tunisia's democracy, and we don't know what to do. Nobody knew what to do, from politicians to people on the street. So it was very interesting. And then that was more this nonprofit was what made me and still is, wake up every day and sleep very happily. I mean, of the when we receive calls from like people we train and beneficiaries that because of our support they were able to start a business, or they were able to support their families and stuff like that. That was very heartwarming, and like it just keeps us very motivated to go. And then Atlas Core, how I joined Atlas Core. Actually, there was a friend of a friend. So actually, my mentor had his friend Aaron, who was working on this the floor after, like at the bread factory, when Atlas Core was at the bread factory in Shaw, and she came to visit in Tunisia, and he showed her the hub and what I was doing, and she's like, "You have to apply to Atlas Core. You have to be in Atlas Core." And so I was like, "Okay, cool. We'll see how it goes. Never heard of it, of this organization. I don't know this program and all that." So a few weeks later, she sends me a recommendation letter with an email saying like, "Did you apply it? If you apply when I told you, you should have been receiving like the prompts to put in your recommendation or like your references." And I was like, oh my god, this is like too fast. Okay, so so I took some time to apply, and then applied, got selected, and next thing I know, it was September 2017, and I'm already class 26, bread factory building as well, and it was very interesting. And yeah, and thank you.
Thank you so much, Nina, for sharing. Anyone else would like to share?
I think now that I can jump in, and like the reality of like to have this conversation right now, even this moment, this to share my experience. I felt that since I was little, I was not expecting to be like, or to become this person that I am right now. I am coming from a background from Nicaragua, you know, and like I grew up in a really small town in Nicaragua. And I went to a public university and I studied psychology. And during 3 years of my beginning of my career, after I did my master in epidemiology, I worked in the Department of Research on Mental Health. Nevertheless, I felt that it was not the right environment for me to grow up as a. I felt that I was as a leader, but mostly as a woman too, you know, as a professional woman. And I decided to start go and explore more about this world of the nonprofit sector. And thanks to that idea to get out of my comfort zone, on my first year working in Nicaragua, I was invited to open a new international educational program in Dominican Republic. And now that's how I felt that right now is actually related to how I landed in Atlas Curve. Well, I was living in a really small town in Dominican Republic. I had a chance to meet a couple volunteers, Latinos volunteers, that they were serving in different organizations in Haiti and Dominican Republic. And the organization they were serving, it was America Solidaria. And America Solidaria decided to open a charter in United States, and that's how they got aligned with Atlas Curve. So I was part of that first generation of volunteers from America Solidaria US going to United States, but also I was the first Nicaraguan accepted to the Atlas Curve program. Another interesting fact is it took me 8 interviews in 6 months to get in the program. So if anyone is just holding in there, keep holding. It's worth it. It's worth it, the wait. And to understand that we need to keep hustling. And the experience in Atlas Curve actually lets me to where I landed right now. I feel that everything is so interconnected. I was serving in Latin America Youth Center and like doing after school programs for immigrant youth from the Central American area. So many of the kids that I was serving, they crossed the border by themselves. They had a reality of migration that it was quite different than I have. And that also pushed me to ask the hard questions that I didn't make in the past. That it was how even my privilege, the access to opportunity, allowed me in the moment to get in United States with the J1 visa, and I have that opportunity to be part of this development professional program. After that experience with Atlas Curve, that it was a really, I felt the Atlas Curve gives you a lot of like hard skills, but the experience in my organization and where I was just serving gave me the right soft skills to understand how to get along, keep serving to the youth. So for the next couple of years, I was serving in different programs in Latin America, from Costa Rica to Ecuador, and then that's in Ecuador. I had a really wake up call moment that I was just asking myself, where should I be serving? And that's how I landed here. I currently work in an organization called CERES, and what we do is we catalyze youth leadership in rural communities here between Guatemala and El Salvador. And it's really related to what I did in Atlas Curve in the past, which is like really passionate. I've been serving in this organization for like 4 years, and it's an ecosystem that believes that the youth needs to be in the central aspect of the mission. And it has been driving me to ask myself how my talents can be like keep serving better and approaches opportunities to this youth, to maybe one day be part of this kind of panels that I'm looking really forward that I could see them here. And at the end, they are the motors that could make the change of our countries and our realities. I consider myself
Great.
also that one of my biggest passion is to study all the time about power dynamics. I'm really intrigued to study more a little about the power dynamics in civil society organizations and how the leadership styles can shape the mission and how the organizations are being run nowadays is something that I'm like also really intrigued. And just finally, I'm like just like really I feel that I'm really passionate just to get in places where not, I hadn't been invited. And once that I make sure that I have a seat, I'm not scared just to put myself on the side and actually make sure that the voices that I need to be heard they have the right space to be heard in that moment. So thank you.
That's very good. That's very good. Thank you, Lucia. Trina?
Yes, and I think, Will, you talked a little bit about my origin story in the introduction. But when I was in college, I started working in a red light area in Calcutta. It's actually one of Asia's oldest and largest red light areas, and I think that was a really life changing experience for me because growing up culturally, the mindsets I had about sex workers that I had heard someone from my family or someone in my surroundings say was, either these are bad people or criminals in some way, or that, something bad has happened to them, so we should feel sorry for them. But when I was working with the sex workers and their children in the red light area, I just sensed an immense potential in both the women and children to do so many amazing things. And it just seemed like if they could just have the opportunity, they could really be leaders in the community and be really inspiring people. So that's what led me to then do everything else I did in life, which is uh, I realized that like I wanted my role to be to create opportunities for people with all of these amazing potential, and for me to just create that space. And I think that's been a common thread in my work. So I started this organization, Kranti, as you mentioned, Willie, where we have a shelter home where we work with girls from the red light area, and we work on their mental health, education, leadership training. And I feel like that's sort of what I was doing at Atlas Co as well. So I was placed at American Express Philanthropy, and they were investing in leadership for nonprofit professionals, which is again an opportunity that nonprofit professionals don't get a lot, right? Nonprofit professionals from around the world is they have so much potential and they have such deep understanding of social issues and can do so many great things, but somehow there isn't that much investment in their leadership. And that's what American Express was willing to do, and I got to build that program. uh, so I think that's sort of from starting from my origin story. I just hope to be able to create opportunities for people.
Thank you so much. So the three of you have been talking about your mission and how you found out the mission, how um, that mission has been evolving. So thinking about your current position, how do you communicate that mission to your coworkers, to your partners, to the people you work with? And I'm just gonna put that like a follow-up question in there. Do you feel like you've had to develop specific communication skills to be able to communicate that mission effectively to the people you work with? Maybe we can shift the order now. And Lucia, do you want to go first?
I can totally do that. It's actually, I feel that it has been an evolution process. It's like I never will expect 15 years ago to be so passionate about youth development as I am right now. And I feel that the most important part is to understand how my personal story is really engaging with how my personal story is really engaging with what I'm doing and where am I serving right now. And we need to make those questions, like we need to find those dots to connect. And I feel that one of the things that actually has been really engaging is, first of all, to connect that personal story with my personal perspective, and then like coming and trying just to connect it with the reality of where am I serving and what is my professional career leading right now. And the other good aspect of it is just to bring your full self. Like sometimes I can ended up telling my stories in some moments that I ended up like with a couple tears in my eyes. And at the beginning, I was feeling like quiet. I don't know, like uncomfortable to do that. But things that I have good advisors around me, they tell me that that's the part that is meaningful. Like to understand that when we are suffering in a social aspect, we could not disconnect our personal stories from it. And being vulnerable is the most quote to be brave and also to be accountable with others when we're just trying to share stories.
Thank you so much. Trina, would you like to go?
I think it's when it comes to communicating with the team, I think it's very important that we come up with that message together so that everyone has ownership over it rather than me trying to dictate a specific message that everyone then adapts. Because I think different people on the team have different reasons and their own reasons to be passionate about the work. So if we take the example of Kranti, my organization, some people are there because they're very passionate about providing psychological support to trauma victims, right? The psychology part is what's really important to them. For some, it's leadership of girls. And for me, like I said, it's about opportunity for those who have great potential, right? So I think we have to let everyone on the team arrive at their own message as to why the work that is being done is so important. And if there is one united message for everyone to come up with it together, so there's ownership, you know. And I think then communicating to the external world outside of the team does take uh, a different kind of messaging. Of course, I mean, yes, we do need to cater our message to different audiences. And when it comes to communicating to the external world, my one principle is that it has to be an empowering story about the community and not a sad story about what they don't have access to or the difficulties they have faced. I think the reason we do the work we do is because these communities are facing certain difficulties. So that goes without saying. But I think it's really important that the stories we tell are about look how much potential these people have. Look at these great success stories. And we use that to motivate people to join the work and to join the movement, and not because of, oh, this is a really sad thing, that's why you should do it. I think it's really important we keep empowerment at the center of our storytelling.
Oh, that's very empowering. Thank you. Nino?
Yeah, I can't agree more with both Lucia and Trina. Thank you so much. It's like, yeah, and I think, yeah, echoing that, it's shared values and ownership. That's like the main points for communication. But also, it like the question is so also broad. Um, I'll give you an example with my team, for example, at L Space. A lot of times where, first of all, they're all smarter than me. That's one thing to consider, because that helps also them bring more value to the organization, more like creative solutions to the beneficiaries, to the work we do, and at the same time feeling empowered. And also we have a transparent communication rule and a no BS rule as well. So like at the end of the day, this is what we did, or we gather around and then we basically, what's the story of the day, or like what's the story of the week, that should not, or like how to say, that no news agency would sell, or like would buy it from us, but at the same time we feel good about it. And this is basically, like Tina mentioned, something about empowerment, something about, like, positivity. Mainstream media will never buy positive stories. They will always want the stressful, the something that sells to the mainstream. But from our side, that's why also we collaborate with independent media agencies, or like startups or initiatives, to broadcast the potential, like Trina mentioned and Lucia as well, the potential of our like communities that we serve. And yeah, I think like more like how to say, like everybody has their own stories, but at the same time the stories overlap because we are from the same geography, the same, I mean, we're all from the same planet after all. So, like, everything overlaps. Sometimes we see so many parallels from different neighborhoods in Tunisia, and also different neighborhoods from Tunisia and Brazil, for example, or in Kenya, and that's very very mind blowing. But yeah, that's my perspective.
Thank you so much. So many takeaways from what we've been talking about, but talking about communicating with transparency, and what I get from Lucia is communicating from the heart, which is something I can really resonate with. So we've been talking about communicating with your peers, with partners, with the people you work with. How do you ensure also that your storytelling listens to the community you serve to, and the people who the benefit, what we call, some people will call beneficiaries of the community we work, the communities we serve. So how do you ensure the effective listening process with those communities? Uh, Nino, want to go first?
Sure. Yeah, effective communication process, or like a hearing process. So first of all, we with all of our donors or like partners, be it corporations or foreign governments, embassies, we always fight so hard. It's very tiring, to be honest. We fight for, like, a spot to make them, or like oblige them to meet the communities we work with, the beneficiaries. I mean, different names for the same people. Like, we call them our friends, and that's it. Like, friends of L space. But for reporting purposes, as you might all know, sometimes it's beneficiaries, sometimes it's communities we work with. But for us, it's like always friends of us, of ours, and we make sure that our donors, our partners, know, like, have an in-person conversation with them. Sometimes we of course, it's very difficult to get someone to have a meeting with the U.S. ambassador, for example. But it's also somehow easy to get the U.S. ambassador to an event where people will showcase their development process, or like their how to say, like, the journey they went through to gain these skills, or like the how they can, how to say, like, what they learned throughout this project or whatever. So this is how we try to not always tell stories about people. We fight hard to make this people, give people space to tell their own stories to the different audiences. Of course, we will have, in different situations, especially during COVID, everything moved online with like lockdowns and everything. It was very limiting to get people to meet. But so we had to the very honored task, and also difficult task, to convey the stories of different people, different friends, from their background, and especially we talk a lot about the achievements, and basically from state A to state B, and then how things evolve throughout the way. And also, the most important thing is that how things can be sustainable and resilient in the future, because like, today we exist, tomorrow we might not exist, and that's that's one of the reasons we decided to start the organization in the first place.
Thank you. Trina, let's go with you.
So I have a great story about listening to the community, which changed my life. And I'm feeling like I'm saying that too many times. Clearly, my life has changed many times. So, when we started Kranti, our original idea was we want Kranti to be the place where these girls can come and they can choose to do and be whoever they want to be. And it's our job to find them the opportunities to do that. But when we would ask the girls, what do you want to do? They would always say that, I want to be a teacher and I want to teach the children of sex workers because nobody admits us in school. Or I want to be a gynecologist because sometimes doctors refuse to treat sex workers because they have taboos about getting sexually transmitted diseases from touching them or treating them. And so we really heard this message from the girls about how passionate they were about going back to their communities and being leaders in their communities and solving many of the problems they grew up facing. Uh, and I feel like that lesson always stays with me about how much we have to listen to the community, and we have to design our interventions putting them at the center, because we learned this powerful lesson from the girls. It upgraded our vision, it upgraded our work to say that, not only are we providing opportunities to these girls, but we're actually preparing them to be the best leaders of the next generation. And that could only come from listening to them, and probably not if I had sort of single-handedly decided what to do or what programs to have. So that's why, of course, listening is critical.
Thank you very much. Listening is empowering as well. So thank you for sharing that story. Lucia?
Yeah, I normally like when I prepare for these questions, I make like a checklist because sometimes I just gather those ideas in like some of the roles that are playing right now. And I have been learning three things. First of all, we need to learn how to be humble. We don't know anything. The people who knows is the people who are on the ground, who face us reality, and we are just facilitators, and like that get us in another place. The second one is active listening, but also I prepare my brain because yeah, I have a really dispersed mind, so I took my brain in a sponge mode. Like I'm just trying to observe everything that I'm hearing, everything that I'm listening, and mostly listening, because when you hear people, you still can come across with all these judgmental thoughts that you can have from their stories. So listening is like a really more pure and filter action that we can do for others when they're like sharing their stories. And finally, make strategy questions, because we need to go in deep and like understand like what further can we keep learning from their experience. We understand that also when we're telling other people stories, we want to do it from this place of dignity. For many years, the nonprofit sector has been like really feeding themselves from poverty, from having this pity feelings for others and people who are like facing really from marginalized communities. So I feel that dignity is a really important part. And also like, how can you keep bringing hope to the communities you're trying just to serve through their own stories? And what currently we're doing is that many of the impact results that we are seeing the youth that we're serving in cities, we're just trying to align them with their leadership journey, and their leadership journey only can be told through their stories. So we're making sure that we are doing it in different ways. I feel that the own experience of not only COVID, but this new generation is teaching us how to tell these stories. um, uh, I feel that I'm still quite uncomfortable to some platforms like TikTok or even Instagram. But yeah, sometimes you can do a compelling story in less than a minute just in Instagram. And I bet you like the many of the communities that we are serving is a new way that we could keep telling their story in a more fun and dynamic way, in a dynamic way. And we are like really approaching this kind of a story more on a global level.
Thank you so much, Lucia. Really good. Okay, so we are a few minutes away to opening the floor to our audience. So I'm gonna start up ahead right now and invite them to share the questions, comments they have to our panelists. And before we open the floor to the audience, let's do a lightning session. So in 2 minutes tops, let's try to share advices for people who want to make great impact or to work in this mission-driven world. Um, so let's try to share advices in two areas. One, what advice would you give to one of our young professionals and the people who are listening to us uh, if they want to make a meaningful social impact? What advice would you give them to achieve meaningful social impact? And the other question would be, what advice would you give them to effectively communicate their mission to others and get them to mobilize other people? Okay.
I can start.
Okay.
The advice I would give is that start when you're stupid, and that might be when you're younger. because I think the older we get, we find out about all the things that are going to be so difficult and all the things that are going to fail. But when we are younger, we're a little bit stupider, and let's use that to our advantage. So if you have any ideas, something you've been holding on to, you want to do in the impact field, don't wait anymore. The longer you will wait, you will never do it. So jump into the deep end is my advice. And when it comes to storytelling, I would say, going back to what I said earlier, that keep the story empowering. Even if the story is about you, talk about the great potential you have, not just the difficulties that you might have had. So see yourself that way and see everyone in the community that way as well for the potential that they have.
Thank you so much. Who wants to go next? Nino?
I might go aligned. I'm sorry,
Okay.
I just jumped
All
in.
right. Okay, Lucia, you can go.
Yeah, no, I would really encourage people to keep ask yourself your whys. It's like, why do you want to do this? And make those questions every day in order to keep yourself accountable. And like also to renew like the purpose, where are you trying just to serve, and like which lines are you trying to do it? And I'm going to go back to you, Trina, with that advice. Actually, I've been doing an exercise with colleagues here in the nonprofit sectors. We are sharing our failures. And it has been an really interesting exercise to do, because normally we are just sharing our success stories, and behind any success stories, how many failures are. And it just get us in a position, not only on the part of being humble, but to understand that first of all, we are not alone trying just to make this world a better place. And it would take us like sometimes, like make mistakes in those aspects. And the second one is you can come back together from the learning experience, because that's where you find the most amazing harvest. So do not be scared to be vulnerable and be yourself accountable as a social leader to share those areas. And finally, the storytelling part, it has to be connected, a professional pathway, it has to be connected with some personal values. Go and ask yourself, what are those professional values that like actually drives you every morning to wake up and like keep acting from which space you are, and trying just to make a change in this world.
Thank you. Very wise. Nino?
Thank you. Wow, Trina and Lucia said almost everything. But I would add, never take no for an answer. Like seriously and literally, be it from a public administration, from people you think their support would be a win-win situation. Like just keep the momentum going. And also, there's a lot of talk about financial sustainability for nonprofits and everything. Just like I think, like to be honest, that's what helped us and kept us afloat in a lot of situations. Just having this business mindset, like running a nonprofit as a business would only be very beneficial. And of course, like Lucia mentioned, always remember your why. Why do you do this? Why do you exist?
Thank you. We have very wise advices from our panelists. So let's open the floor to folks listening to us and seeing this discussion through their different social media. Please share your questions, share your comments, and then we'll be monitoring them and asking them to our panelists. We have first question here from Nora. She follows us from Facebook Live, and her question is, how do I bring out the skills in application when I'm just employed and not leading or implementing initiatives? So I guess it's related to maybe, I think
I can
it's,
take a quick crack at that.
sorry?
I was going to answer Nora's question real quick.
Okay.
Yeah. So, Nora, I was going to say that, leading doesn't always have to be your own organization. I feel like even if you have a job and you're working somewhere else, there are things that you can do to be a leader, right? Even if it means taking initiative to solve a conflict with another colleague, maybe, or thinking of a new program or project within that organization that's aligned with the values of that organization, bringing a small change to some process that's going to make life easier for everyone else on the team. So I think there are many ways to be a leader and show your initiative skills inside a job as well. So just look for those, and I'm sure you have it in you already.
Thank you, Lucia.
Yes, I there is a couple things about applications for funds that I've been learning the last couple of years. And first of all, sometimes the system is not serving to us, and we need to be clear about that. Like doing application is hard. It's hard, but mostly like the people who are in charge normally are people back in whether it could be in Europe or US, they know how to apply to those funds. But with our team, we have find it out there are like other key strategies beyond an application firm. And these ones are to create more meaningful connections with possible donors and funders. How do you do that? Just through a call. You need to have compelling stories. You need to like come back to them and like just bring your full self on why should I be like we shouldn't be serving this or people shouldn't be investing in your initiatives. And um, I found it out too. The even the own experience of fellowship right now is like really trending. This fellowship experience that are happening on a global level apply to those ones too. Those ones are teaching you how to do like better approaches with the fundraising area. And I will give you that as an advice, not only with Atlas Curve itself, there are like other amazing fellowships happening. So just trying to figure it out, those create more networking because those people actually, or they like, you can find in people that are doing those fellowship allies, they can lead you to possible funders or possible opportunities of collaboration to keep applying for funds.
Thank you, Lucia. Nino, anything to add?
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting question. So thank you, Nora, for asking. And so the main advice would be just to be yourself. I mean, like you asking this question or like you thinking about applying to a fellowship program is already knowing that deep inside you have some the potential. You have things to do or like you've done. Probably you didn't think about it. I mean, for me, for example, for some these similar questions, let's say, before Atlas Core, I just went to my mom and asked her like, how was I during elementary school? How was I during high school? Like, was I taking a lead in something? Was I? And then slowly, some things like some memories surged of where I found myself managing situations without knowing even the word leadership and what it means. So yeah, keep digging. I'm sure you've done something before.
Thank you so much for the insight. I think bottom line is you don't have to be the director of an initiative or the founder of an initiative to be a leader. So just find that leadership inside you. That's really good. Okay, so we have comments here like Catherine from class 45. She says she would love to connect with Lucia after this. Just a reminder to everyone listening to us, in every promotional post on social media we've made, we shared the LinkedIn accounts from our three panelists, so you can reach out there. Personally, I believe that their LinkedIn accounts are great examples of how to do proper storytelling. I loved checking their LinkedIn account, so go there and connect with them. So let's keep talking. You've been talking about, and then we went back to Atlas Core, which is something I think is important. So how does the Atlas Corp experience, and it's good because we're different. You are, and if I include myself as well, we are different generation from Atlas Corp. So how your Atlas Corp journey helped you uh, in that professional development and that personal trajectory of yours? Uh, yeah, Lucia.
Okay. Yes, I got to jump in, and I would just come back to not only the experience itself, just to be in Washington, D.C., because I serve in Washington, D.C., and we have access to these amazing trainings with the law in some moment with the global leadership trainings, and it was amazing. But I will come back again to how the experience itself to be serving in a grassroots nonprofit in DC may really to have a a different experience compared to other fellows in the past. Many of my fellows were serving in different areas like communication or more like a strategy level, but I was on the ground and I could understand like how this different dynamic of power inequality serves and is still serving in a country like United States, and understanding having a deeper understanding and about how the nonprofit sector sometimes could work. Like I could never could imagine that actually we sometimes have a tendency to work as silos and not work in collaboration level. And it's something that it just like shocked me in the moment when I found it out. But now it's quite different because what I'm doing currently is working from the space of radical collaboration, where we have top relationship that it can help us, to through these collaborations to both organizations can enhance their missions. That's the first thing that I'm taking from that experience. And second, that always like we can create strategies on how can we keep serving in a more strategy level the communities. And finally, I found that the biggest treasure I could ever learn is my network of fellows. So far, being able to connect the last 2 years, at least with 5 different fellows that has come to Guatemala, and also like connect with them on a online level, not only with our personal story, but even sometimes, when we are like facing those good questions where we need a transition professionally, go back to them. They know they could give you better resources, they can give you better advices, and I've been finding in them like also great sources of mentors. So it's something that I keep launching. And also I want to include the team of Atlas Corps. I've been finding on them a great resource of like doing networking. An example of that is one of the co-executive director of the organization that I was serving, that I'm like working right now. She was planning a trip to Washington D.C., and I have the support of the Atlas Corp team just to help me like to connect with organizations that were like aligned with the vision that we have here. So yes, that's something that I keep like investing a lot.
Thank you, Lucia. Nino?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Like I would echo Lucia in especially the team of Atlas Core and the network you do during the fellowship was of tremendous help me, like how to say, like a tremendous impact on my professional journey, also on my personal journey as well. So like you build friendships and meaningful relationships with your fellow fellows, but also the networking opportunities, especially when I was in DC, were very, very interesting and very impactful on me as like a professional and on my organization as well. We secured a couple donors or like a couple partners for the organization. Yeah, it was very, very beneficial in terms of access to different people, different resources, and trust me, it's not. Like I realized, like before going to Atlas Corp, I realized that networking should always like be only to raise more money or like do more, have more resources from other donors or partners. Uh, what I realized as well is that it's more important, and this is where the impact happened. It's more important to build this knowledge or like the know-how and develop this expertise that then I retransferred to my organization. Like as soon as I got back to Tunisia, it was like more of a restructuring. Like we spent like about 6 months restructuring. This is how things should be, and this is why it should be like this. And it was very impactful for the organization as well. Like the team was working more smoothly. The processes were good. The contacts with new partners was very also in line, and like everything was smooth. So yeah, it's like more networking and also knowledge sharing or knowledge management in a way.
Thank you so much, Nina. Trina, we have a few minutes left. Two
I
minutes
feel
left.
like the other Atlas Core fellows are so much more than networking. They're like family, and much like Lucia was saying that, I have visited so many of them all over the world, and so many of them have visited me, and I feel like I can really be my real self, share all the difficult, vulnerable stories with them, and celebrate the successes. So, but working on social issues like all of us do can get very lonely and difficult sometimes. So I think App the Score is so valuable to me because it makes me feel not so lonely and that I have this whole family of fellows on this journey with me.
Thank you so much, Trina. And thank you so much to our lovely panel. It's been amazing sharing this space with you. And I hope all the fellows that joined us also enjoyed the insights and the knowledge that you were sharing today. It was amazing. Thank you so much. So, yeah, we're running out of time, so I'm going to just wrap up. Thank you so much for joining us today for another Leadership Journey session of the Atlas Corp Global Leadership Lab. Make sure to follow us on Facebook and YouTube for more engaging content like this. And we'll see you. My name is Willie. I'm serving with Generation as part of Atlas Corp. And our guests today were Class 15 alum Trina Talukdar with Fields of View, Class 26 alum Nino, and Class 16 alum Lucia Solorzano from Ceres. For more engaging content like this, make sure to follow Atlas Corp on social media and visit our website at atlascorp.org. Learn more about ongoing recruitment for Atlas Corp programs. And thank you, everyone, and have a great day.